The moment Denzel Washington walked onto the set of Piers Morgan Uncensored, the air in the studio shifted. He wasn't just another guest, he was a force, walking in like the calm before a thunderstorm, dressed in a crisp, dark-tailored suit. No tie, top button undone, just enough to signal control without pretense. The audience murmured, some in awe, some in curiosity, all sensing something electric. Piers Morgan sat poised in his leather chair, one leg over the other, fingers steepled. In front of his lips, like he was about to perform intellectual surgery, that smug smirk, the one he wore like armor, was already in place. He was ready to corner, poke, prod, and if he could, break. But he had no idea what was about to unfold. The cameras rolled, lights up, and, without wasting a beat, Piers leaned forward with the subtle aggression of a man who'd tasted blood before. "Mr. Washington," he began, voice thick with condescension, "you've been quite busy on Capitol Hill lately, stirring the pot, making noise. Surely even you must admit your recent performances in politics have been more about branding than public service, a hush, the kind that seems to vacuum the room of oxygen." Denzel didn't flinch. His eyes didn't blink. He reached down beside his chair, slowly, methodically, and pulled a sleek black leather folder onto the desk in front of him. The audience tensed. Even Morgan's crew behind the glass started shifting in their seats. Denzel opened the folder and slid a document across the table with the deliberate grace of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. The camera zoomed in, emblazoned on the top. United States District Court, Southern District of New Cavan, calmly low and surgical. Denzel said, "Actually, Piers, I'm here to serve you with something else entirely." A beat of silence. "You've just been served with a $20 million defamation lawsuit." 5 seconds of stunned stillness followed, long enough for the audience to gasp, long enough to watch Piers Morgan's face glitch through confusion, disbelief. Then raw, sweating panic. He blinked, once, twice, then slowly leaned back in his chair as if trying to retreat into it. "What? What is this?" he stammered, fingers twitching toward the folder like it might explode. "This," Denzel replied, voice steely, "is accountability." The control room behind the glass was chaos, producers scrambling, whispering into earpieces. Morgan's executive producer mouthed, "Cut to commercial." But no one dared make the call. Because this wasn't just a breakdown. This was an execution. Morgan attempted a recovery. He fumbled through his papers, looking for the ground he used to stand on. "Mr. Washington," he began again, trying to reclaim his host role. "I think you're being overly dramatic. This is a show. We ask tough questions," Denzel cut in, smooth and firm. "Tough questions. Is that what you call it when you fabricate stories, smear reputations, and broadcast lies with a grin?" The audience murmured again, louder this time. Denzel leaned forward. "For 6 months, you've run segments attacking my name. You've called me a fraud, a poser, un-American." Morgan shifted, squinting at the document like it was written in another language. "That's not defamation, Mr. Washington. It's journalism." "No, Piers," Denzel said, calm, cracking into righteous heat. "It's slander, wrapped in an accent and aired in prime time." The tension ballooned, palpable. Even the studio audience didn't dare shift in their seats. No laughter, no applause, just the sound of a man being peeled alive in real time. Morgan cleared his throat. Let's back up a second. You're accusing me of what exactly?" Denzel tapped the paper with his index finger. "You accused me, on national television, of faking my law degree." He tapped again. "You said I was under investigation by the House Ethics Committee. Again, you implied I had secret financial ties that compromised my role in public service." Then, slower pointed, he added, "And you made each of these statements after being given evidence that they were false." Boom, the room convulsed in silence. Morgan's mouth hung open, the wheels turning, searching for a path out. "Look, people say things. My sources, no Piers," Denzel said, the courtroom cross-examiner in him emerging like a blade. "This isn't about people or sources. This is about you. You said it, you aired it, and you ignored the truth when it was handed to you." Behind the glass, the executive producer mouthed again. "Cut." The director shook his head. "Are you insane? This is gold." Morgan tried to pivot, desperate now. "So what? You're going to sue me for doing my job?" Denzel shook his head slowly. You're not being sued for doing your job. You're being sued for doing it wrong, and doing it with malice. He opened the folder again, revealing email transcripts, production notes, timelines. These are communications from your team. October 12th Thu asked for my educational records. We sent them. October 20th Thu inquired about investigations. We responded, no such inquiries exist. November 1st, you requested my financial disclosures. We sent the public links. He flipped pages slowly, letting the weight of each date fall. Despite all of that, despite having the truth, you went on air, again and again, and told the world lies. Morgan's face was frozen now, jaw tight, pupils shrinking. Mr. Washington, this is live television, he said, voice cracking slightly. I know, Denzel replied, and it's the perfect place to make this correction. Then he leaned into the mic, turning directly to the camera. For every kid watching who thinks being loud makes you right, for every law student grinding late nights hoping the truth still matters, for every public servant who's ever had their name dragged through the mud by a man who thinks a camera gives him a license to lie. He paused. This one's for you? The audience erupted not in cheers, but in a long, rolling gasp that felt like oxygen rushing back into the room after being held hostage. Morgan tried to cut in again. I have rights, you know. I'm a journalist, Denzel shot back. No, Piers, you're a performer, and today the performance is over. He stood slowly, the document still sitting like a live grenade between them. I don't need to raise my voice. I don't need to storm out. The law will do the talking from here. He began collecting his papers, buttoning his jacket with quiet dignity. Then he paused, one hand still resting on the table, and looked back at Morgan, who sat ashen, silent, defeated. Tried to ruin me with lies. Denzel's voice dropped into a whisper. Now let's see how you hold up when the truth gets loud. He stepped off camera. Morgan didn't move. 10 seconds passed, then 15. Finally, he looked up, trembling. We'll be right back. After the break, but no break came. The control room let the camera roll, letting the world watch what it looks like when a man used to controlling the story suddenly becomes the story. And this was just the beginning. Backstage chaos, Piers Morgan stormed off, set the moment the cameras cut. But it was too late. The world had already seen it. The servers were on fire. Social media erupted. The clip of Denzel calmly serving legal papers on live television had already surpassed 1 million views before Piers made it down the hallway. Inside the control booth, his executive producer Sarah Mitchell was pale, headset dangling around her neck, eyes fixed on the playback. He really did it, she whispered. Morgan burst through the door. Get legal on the phone now. I want every trace of that footage pulled. It's too late, Piers, someone cut in. It's already been clipped. Millions are watching. BBC, CNN, even Al Jazeera picked it up. It's gone global. He froze, chest heaving, face washed in disbelief. This was supposed to be another knockout. He was supposed to snap, lose his temper, make a fool of himself. But Denzel hadn't snapped. He hadn't even raised his voice. He'd buried him with calm. Precision.Talk TV single quotes legal counsel appeared in the corner of the room on a rushed video call. Piers, did you say on air that Mr. Washington faked his law degree? Morgan looked around like someone would save him. It was editorial, provocative framing. We have freedom of speech. You also have responsibilities under UK and US defamation law. And if what I'm seeing is accurate, and his team did send corrections before the broadcasts, we've got a real problem. A real problem, Morgan snapped. He's pulling a stunt. You think a Hollywood actor walks onto my set and serves a lawsuit, and suddenly we're the bad guys? There was a silence from legal. Then, you didn't just get served, Piers. The network did too. Morgan's throat tightened. Rate what? Read the complaint. It names you, your producers, and Talk TV. Panic bloomed behind his eyes. A cold, wet dread that soaked through the expensive fabric of his ego. Back in Denzel's camp, the mood was steady but electric. His chief of staff, Camille Grant, sat beside him in a black SUV, rolling through London's West End. You detonated a nuke in there, she said, scrolling her tablet. The entire internet is talking about it. You've got law professors from Yale tweeting your opening statement like it's scripture. I'm not here for a Twitter victory lap, Denzel said, eyes still sharp. We made our move. Now we play it straight. No theatrics, just facts. Still, Camille allowed herself a grin. That timing, though, that folder, that you've just been served moment. Iconic. Denzel didn't smile back. His eyes were fixed on the storm ahead because the war hadn't been won. It had only just started that night. Talk TV aired a hastily edited replay of the interview, cutting out the legal service and abruptly ending the segment before things exploded. But it didn't matter. The unedited clip was everywhere. Reddit dissected it. Frame-by-frame. Twitter was a bloodbath. Legal TikTok turned it into a masterclass in defamation law. A Harvard professor posted that was a live-action law. School examined Denzel passed with honors. But behind the scenes, Piers was spiraling. Emails leaked from Talk TV's internal Slack. Messages between senior producers and marketing. Staff exposed the strategy. Let him rant, let him implode. Then we'll cut a promo. Denzel unhinged. Only Denzel hadn't unhinged. He'd come locked and loaded with the truth. And now, those same leaked emails were Exhibit A. 3 days later, Morgan arrived at his office to find a team of lawyers. Already waiting. Talk TV single quotes as board had convened an emergency meeting. They weren't asking questions anymore. They were issuing ultimatums. Damage control, they said, issue. A statement, frame it as a misunderstanding. Say you were misinformed. I will not apologize to a man who ambushed me with a lawsuit on my own set. Morgan roared, fists pounding the table. One board member sighed. Piers, this isn't about your pride. It's about the $20 million lawsuit we are now co-defendants in. Another added, our advertisers are calling, they want distance. You've turned us into a liability. Piers stood, trembling with fury. He tricked me, no, the lead counsel replied coolly. He outprepared you. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Denzel held a press conference on the Capitol steps. Cameras lined the plaza. Reporters crushed together, desperate for a soundbite. Mr. Washington, are you trying to silence the media? Denzel stepped forward. Steady. No. I'm demanding truth from it. I welcome critique. What I won't accept is a fabricated smear campaign designed to assassinate character for views. A reporter from the New York Times shouted, Do you plan to escalate this legally? I already have, he replied, and I won't stop until there's accountability, not just from Mr. Morgan, but from every media outlet that confuses provocation with journalism. Camille leaned in. Statement just hit 2 million views. Another staffer whispered, Oxford Law wants to make the case study required reading. But Denzel was already looking past the cameras, because something bigger was brewing too. Weeks later, the first court filing from Morgan's legal team dropped. A motion to dismiss claimed the statements were opinion, rhetorical hyperbole, protected speech. But Denzel's team hit back like a tidal wave, not just with legal counterpoints, but with audio recordings. A whistleblower and assistant producer from TalkFed flipped inside one of the recordings. Morgan was heard saying, that thing about his law degree, yeah, it probably isn't true, but screw it tittle, make good TV. The press exploded, the narrative flipped. Suddenly, it wasn't Denzel versus media. It was Denzel versus manufactured controversy. Inside, Talk TV heads rolled, producers were reassigned, executives fired. The board issued a panicked internal memo. This lawsuit has the potential to bankrupt us. Contained the fallout. But it was too late. Another whistleblower came forward, this time with emails. One dated October 20th showed producers receiving confirmation from Denzel's team that no investigation existed. Another, dated November 1st, showed direct links to his financial disclosures. Yet the segment had aired anyway, titled The Denzel Washington Problem. The internet had a new villain, and this time Piers Morgan couldn't talk his way out. Days later, Camille stepped into Denzel's office, tablet in hand. You've got to see this, she said, flipping the screen. It was a live feed from Talk TV. Piers Morgan, in a darkened studio, sat alone, no guests, no audience, just him and a cold apology. He read from a prompter, face heavy, I acknowledge that some statements made on previous broadcasts were incorrect. I regret any harm caused and will be issuing corrections immediately. Denzel watched. Unmoved, too little, too late. He murmured, but Camille smiled. He just forced the loudest man in media to eat his words. On his own show, Denzel looked out the window. That's not the win. The win is reminding people facts still matter. And that's when the real twist hit. Denzel's legal team filed an amendment to the original complaint. It now included TALK TV executives, shareholders, advertising directors, a full-blown assault, because it wasn't just one man anymore. It was an entire machine built to destroy reputations for clicks, and Denzel Washington had just put a dagger into its heart. It was raining when Piers Morgan showed up to the High Court building in London. Not metaphorically, not dramatically. Literally raining. Cold, sideways sheets of it. The kind of rain that feels personal. Umbrellas clashed. Cameras snapped. Reporters swarmed. The man who once held court on air 5 nights a week, tossing accusations like confetti, now wore a long black coat buttoned too tight and a face drawn with sleepless dread. He didn't wave, didn't smirk, didn't even look. Inside, a war room waited for him. His lawyers, 2 senior barristers, stood ready with thick binders and too many red-stamped folders. Damage control. If we can stall discovery, negotiate privately, shift it to a UK jurisdiction. But the plan collapsed the moment the doors opened and Denzel's lead counsel walked in. Jessica Lyon, federal litigation specialist, Ivy League mind, war test, reputation. She laid a single, slim folder on the table. Unassuming, deadly. "Mr. Morgan," she said flatly, "we're not here to negotiate." She opened the folder, turned it toward him. "These are the emails, the audio clips, the proof. Of malice, you ignored evidence. You published lies. And you did it knowingly." Morgan's lawyers looked at each other, silent. Jessica continued, unblinking. "You don't need to agree with Mr. Washington's politics, but your platform used falsehoods as weapons. That's defamation, per se, and the damages both punitive and reputational are escalating by the hour." Morgan started to speak, but she cut him off. "Oh, and we'll be filing an additional motion in U.S. federal court to compel Talk TV's internal communications. Everything from segment drafts to Slack messages." Her eyes locked on him. "You should prepare yourself." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Denzel Washington stood on the steps of Howard Law School. Students, cameras, and national reporters gathered under a banner that read, "Truth, Law, and Accountability." In Mediahigh didn't bring notes. He didn't need them. "Let me be clear," he began. "I'm not here to silence anyone. I'm here to set a precedent." He scanned the crowd. "We live in a world where a lie told loudly enough becomes truth, but not anymore. This time, there will be consequences." The crowd roared on Twitter. The clip went viral in under an hour. The hashtag Washington vs. Morgan exploded globally. By nightfall, news outlets in Germany, India, and South Africa were covering the case. A Brazilian political talk show translated the full Denzel interview. Live? Law professors across continents released threads, videos, and legal explainers. This wasn't just a media fight, it had become a movement. Back at Talk TV, the foundation was cracking. Executives were in freefall. The general counsel walked off. An anonymous board member leaked this to the Times. "This is bigger than Piers. It's about how we operate. And what we chose to air, we're all exposed now." In a crisis meeting, a junior staffer, hands shaking, stood up and whispered what no one else dared say. Maybe we deserve to lose this one." The boardroom went silent, because behind all the red-faced shouting, behind the marketing panic and legal spin, one truth sat like a loaded pistol on the table. They had built their brand on arrogance, and now that arrogance had a price tag, a $20 million one. Then came the leak that changed everything, a cache of internal Slack messages and pre-show memos from the Piers Morgan Uncensored team were published by an anonymous whistleblower. One message, sent 2 days before the explosive segment aired, read, "Who cares if it's airtight? Denzel's not going to sue. He's an actor, not a senator." Another, "Run it. If he hits back, we'll say it was editorial opinion." The receipts were out, and the world was watching. The House Judiciary Committee announced it would review defamation risks tied to media disinformation. The British Parliament issued a statement condemning reckless commentary dressed as journalism. Advertisers dropped out en masse. Within 72 hours, Talk TV lost £18 million in commercial commitments. And Piers, his social following plummeted. Blue check marks revoked. Invitations cancelled. His podcast licensing deal dissolved in the same breath. As the term sheet, for the first time in decades, no one wanted to be near him. Denzel, on the other hand, was everywhere, but not in a spectacle kind of way. He gave exactly one interview, not to CNN, not to MSNBC, but to PBS, the host asked gently. Why take the risk of doing this live on air? Denzel leaned in, because that's where the lies happened. That's where the harm was done. He paused. You don't correct a fire in private when it was started in public. The clip was turned into a soundbite, a TikTok trend, a law school motto. Correct the fire where it was started. That quote was printed across protest signs, classroom slides, coffee mugs, and digital billboards. The culture had shifted. What once would have been chalked up to just media was now an active legal war with measurable consequences. And behind the scenes, Denzel's team was just getting started. The next hearing date was set. March 12th, Southern District of New York, Piers Morgan would be required to sit for a recorded deposition under oath. His lawyers tried to push the date. The judge denied the motion. They filed an appeal, denied again. And when they submitted a motion to seal the deposition video from the public, the judge issued a blistering ruling. Given the public nature of the alleged defamation, the public has a right to access the defendant's response. In short, the tape was going to be made public. The countdown began. Cable networks prepared. Round-the-clock coverage, newsrooms brought in legal experts for the viewing. Netflix called Denzel's team. He didn't pick up. And then, just days before the deposition, an audio file leaked. This one. It came from a pre-production meeting dated just 2 days before Morgan's infamous Denzel Washington problem segment aired. In the tape, Piers was heard saying, "Even if it's not true, it's compelling. That's the job. You could." Hear producers laughing in the background. No one was laughing now. The file trended under #EvenIfIt'sNotTrue. Reputations buckled under its weight. Law students dissected it like gospel. Suddenly, the lawsuit wasn't just about Denzel. It was about every public figure who'd been misquoted, smeared, misrepresented, or mocked without proof. They called it the Washington precedent. On March 10th, 2 days before Morgan was set to testify, Denzel released a brief public statement outside federal court. He stood tall, flanked by Camille and his attorneys. The street was packed. Cameras, crowds, helicopters overhead. "I didn't file this lawsuit to be right," he said. "I filed it to make it right." He looked into the lens. For every young person watching, if they lie about you, if they smear you, if they try to strip your name from you, he held up the legal file. Stand your ground. And as the day of reckoning approached, Piers Morgan sat in his empty studio. Watching his career flicker out like a dying transmission, he whispered to no one, to nothing. How the hell did I get here? He looked up at the monitor, replaying the moment when Denzel calmly said, "You've just been served." And now, he'd have to answer for it. Under oath, in front of the world, and there would be no cutting to commercial. March 12th, Southern District of New York. The air inside the courthouse was dense, not with heat, but with anticipation. A low, vibrating silence held every hallway hostage. The kind of quiet you feel in your bones before history rewrites itself. At 9:43 a.m., Piers Morgan walked through the front doors. He didn't smirk. He didn't wave. The swagger, the smirking lion of British media was gone. In his place stood a man aged 10 years in 10 days, dragging behind him the ghost of unchecked ego in courtroom 3B. The benches were full. Legal analysts, professors, international reporters, even Hollywood producers. Everyone wanted to see the fall in real dash time. And at the front sat DenzelWashington.com/polished. A still ocean masking a trench of fury. Piers Morgan took his seat across the aisle. He couldn't look at him. He didn't even try. The judge entered. The gavel dropped, and the reckoning began. First came the recordings, then the emails, then the internal Slack messages with jokes about throwing red meat to the audience and whether Denzel would even fight back. The courtroom stayed quiet until the tape played. Even if it's not true, it's compelling. That's the job. That line landed like a bullet. The court reporter blinked. Several jurors winced. One gasped. Denzel didn't flinch. He didn't need to, because every word of that tape did what Piers never imagined. It proved intent, it proved malice, and it turned public speculation into a legal death sentence. Then came Piers's deposition. A giant monitor stood to the side of the court. The lights dimmed. His image filled the screen gray background. Courtroom lighting, face pale and tight. He sat across from Jessica Lyon, Denzel's lead attorney, who didn't raise her voice once. "Mr. Morgan, were you aware that your producers received verified documentation regarding Mr. Washington's law degree, bar certification, and financial disclosures?" Piers swallowed. "I don't recall." "Did you review the email from October 12th, sent by Sarah Mitchell? Producer confirming no ethics investigation existed." "I may have seen parts of it. Is it true you said on October 20th that, and I quote, 'If it's false, he can sue us'?" "Silence, then." "Yes." Jessica didn't blink. "Well, here we are." The courtroom erupted. Not in chaos, but in that sharp, stifled inhale of 100 people realizing they'd just watched a career detonate. The judge called for order. The lights came back up, but the tone had shifted. This wasn't defamation anymore. This was surgical accountability. Outside the courthouse, crowds had doubled in size. Chants began to rise. Signs appeared in dozens of hands. "Truth over clicks, defend truth," like Denzel stopped the smear machine inside. Piers's defense team was cracking. They pushed for settlement fast. But it was too late. The documents were filed. The record was permanent, and Denzel, he wasn't looking for a private apology. He wanted something the media hadn't seen in decades: public consequences. On April 4th, the verdict landed. While a trial date had yet to be finalized, the judge ruled against Morgan's motion to dismiss. The ruling was searing. This court finds sufficient evidence of actual malice and reckless disregard for truth. The defendant knowingly disseminated false claims with disregard for the documented facts provided to his production team. TALK-TV released a statement. "We deeply regret the handling of recent segments concerning Mr. Washington. We are cooperating fully with the legal process." But it didn't end there, because discovery unearthed something deeper. Emails from network executives instructing staff to frame the segment for maximum conflict. Even if the facts weren't solid, that changed everything. Board members resigned. UK regulators opened an inquiry, and Piers, he was suspended. Then quietly let go. No farewell episode, no final show, just silence. Months passed, and while Morgan disappeared into legal purgatory, Denzel didn't tour the talk shows, didn't post TikToks. He went back to work. Town halls, hearings, legislation, but the ripple effect of his lawsuit changed media forever. The Washington Doctrine asked law professors, began calling it, became a new standard. Top law schools taught it, journalism courses dissected it, government panels cited it. It was no longer enough to say, "It's just commentary." Now, if you slandered someone without proof, there were receipts, there were rules, there were repercussions. And one man had made it happen. Not with shouting, not with vengeance, but with quiet fire. Court filings, and the strength to walk into the lion's den with nothing but truth and a leather folder. 1 year later, a new segment aired on PBS. The host, same as before, asked Mr. Washington, "Do you feel vindicated?" Denzel paused, smiled softly. "No, I feel relieved." He glanced down, then back into camera. "Not because we won a case, but because we drew a line." The host nodded. "And if someone else ends up in your position," one day, Denzel leaned forward, calm as ever. "Then I hope they remember. You don't fight fire with noise, you fight it with facts. And you don't whisper truth into the darkness. You put it under a spotlight, and you let the world watch it burn the lies down." Fade to black. The screen stayed empty for a long, silent moment. No music, no narration, just wait, because when truth finally wins in public, there's nothing more cinematic than the silence left behind.